Henry Cavill was supposed to be the heart of the DCEU, the Superman that carried a universe. But behind the scenes, studio chaos, creative misfires, and constant reshuffling pulled everything off course. Meanwhile, David Corenswet has stepped in as the new face of hope, handpicked by James Gunn to rebuild what was lost. In 2010, Warner Brothers picked Zack Snyder to direct Man of Steel, hoping his style could shake up the classic hero. Snyder's signature slow-mo combat and stark color palette echoed his earlier hits Watchmen and 300, and he brought that same energy to Superman. The plan was to modernize the character and launch a new shared universe. On paper, it sounded like a smart move. In practice, things got messy. Man of Steel hit theaters in 2013 as Warner Brothers' big answer to Marvel's growing universe. Right away, Snyder's fingerprints were all over it. Krypton wasn't just a quick origin scene, it was a full-blown alien world with wild visuals and heavy world building. The action scenes were huge and relentless, with citywide destruction that felt more like a disaster movie than a superhero film. That level of spectacle caught people's attention, but it also sparked debate. Superman, the ultimate symbol of peace, was now at the center of chaos, with the film's Metropolis battle leaving the city in ruins. For a lot of fans, that was a problem. The movie's tone split viewers. Some praised its grounded, troubled Clark Kent, others slammed its gloom and that fatal choice to kill Zod as a break from Superman's core, hopeful spirit. The killing of General Zod especially hit a nerve. For many, it was a line Superman should never cross. For others, it showed a hero forced into impossible choices in a darker world. Either way, it was a big shift from the Christopher Reeve era, where Superman always found another way. Financially, Man of Steel did well. It pulled in $668 million worldwide, making it the highest-earning Superman film ever, and outperformed previous non-Batman DC films. But compared to Marvel's Iron Man 3, which came out that same year and made over $1.2 billion, the gap was obvious. Marvel was winning with a blend of action, humor, and heart. Man of Steel had the action, but it struggled to connect with everyone the way Marvel's movies did. Even with all the debate, Warner Brothers stuck with their plan. Instead of pulling back, they doubled down. Henry Cavill had the look, broad shoulders, strong jaw, and an intensity that made you believe he could be Superman. There was still a lot of promise in his performance, even if the story hadn't landed for everyone. The studio's next move was to put Superman up against Batman. Batman vs. Superman. Dawn of Justice was announced with huge hype, promising the first big-screen clash between DC's two biggest heroes. Man of Steel changed what people expected from Superman movies. It gave us a hero who was more conflicted, less perfect, and more realistic in some ways. Some viewers liked the new direction, others thought it missed the point of Superman entirely, but everyone agreed Henry Cavill could be a great Superman if the vision around him clicked. With Batman vs. Superman on the way, the stakes only got higher, and the risk Warner Brothers was willing to take would soon face the ultimate test. Superman's portrayal left a lot of fans cold. Instead of building on his humanity from Man of Steel, Snyder made him seem distant and weighed down by public suspicion. There wasn't much of the hope or optimism people expected from Superman. Batman, played by Ben Affleck, brought a new level of intensity, but his violent tactics, including killing, felt off to longtime fans. The movie set up a huge clash, but it didn't feel like a fight between two heroes with clear, relatable points of view. Batman was on a mission, and Superman seemed distracted. Two moments in particular became lightning rods for criticism: the Martha scene and Superman's death. The Martha moment happened at the peak of the Batman and Superman showdown. Just as Batman is about to win, he stops when he realizes their mothers share the same name.
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name!
That single word sparked so much online mockery it became shorthand for everything that went wrong. The scene was instantly turned into a meme, with fans and critics calling out its awkward execution. Then there was Superman's death. Killing off Clark Kent in only his second appearance didn't sit well with audiences. Snyder tried to echo the Death of Superman comic storyline, but there hadn't been enough time for viewers to really connect with this version of the character. Instead of landing as an emotional gut punch, it felt rushed and unearned. Financially, Batman vs. Superman earned $870 million worldwide. That's a big number, but it missed the $1 billion mark that Marvel's Avengers had already cleared. For a film featuring both Batman and Superman, expectations were even higher. The box office showed that while the movie drew crowds, it didn't become the cultural event the studio hoped for. Justice League was supposed to be the DCEU's big payoff, but instead of a high point, it turned into the moment everything fell apart. The problem started when Zack Snyder, who had been steering the DCEU's direction, left the project after a family tragedy. Warner Brothers brought in Joss Whedon to finish the film, hoping he could lighten things up and make it more family-friendly. The result was a movie that felt stuck between two completely different visions. When Henry Cavill came back for Whedon's reshoots, he was in the middle of filming Mission Impossible and had to keep his mustache for that role. Instead of waiting or finding a workaround, the studio used CGI to erase the mustache. The result was a weird, rubbery upper lip that looked off in every scene. The digital mustache removal became one of the most ridiculed parts of the film and quickly turned into a symbol of how rushed and poorly managed the whole project had become.
A man I knew used to say that hope is like your car keys. Easy to lose, but if you dig around, it's usually close by.
Did you ever fight a hippo? No, that's not hippos have a mustache.
Justice League ended up making $657 million worldwide, which was a huge letdown for what was supposed to be the DCEU's flagship film, but fans didn't let it go. Right after the theatrical release, the Snyder Cut movement took off online. Fans wanted to see Snyder's original version of Justice League, not the patchwork that ended up in theaters. The campaign kept building until Warner Brothers agreed to spend $70 million to finish Snyder's Cut for HBO Max. The release of the Snyder Cut in 2021 gave fans a 4-hour look at what could have been. It fixed some of the character arcs, gave Superman a better return, and showed a more complete story. The Snyder Cut was a hit on streaming and got a much better reaction than the original, but it didn't change the bigger picture. Instead of reviving Henry's Superman or the old DCEU, it just made it clear how much had been lost. Fans kept asking for a sequel, but neither Snyder nor the studio was interested in going back. Now with the old universe winding down and the studio looking for a way forward, the stage was set for something different. The next attempt to bring Superman back wouldn't just be about fixing past mistakes, it would have to restore hope to a fan base that had seen too many disappointments. James Gunn's new direction for Superman signals a shift in how DC wants audiences to see its most iconic hero. The transition wasn't smooth. When Henry Cavill's exit became official, fans were frustrated. Henry had spent years in limbo, sometimes teased for a comeback.
It's the character means so much to me, and it's been 5 years now, and quite rightly, otherwise I probably shouldn't deserve to wear the cape, but I never gave up hope.
His short-lived return in Black Adam only made things messier. By the end of 2022, with new leadership under James Gunn and Peter Safran, it was clear that Cavill's time as Superman was over. The announcement of a reboot raised new questions. Would starting over even work? After so many failed promises, fans were skeptical that DC could get Superman right. David Corenswet's casting is part of the answer. He's younger than Henry was when he started, which lines up with Gunn's plan to focus on a Superman who's still early in his journey. Corenswet is mostly new to blockbuster audiences, which is intentional. DC has a history of picking lesser-known actors for Superman, from Christopher Reeve to Brandon Routh. Corenswet's own background, his age, his look, and his more approachable style signals a move away from the distant, haunted Superman of the last decade. Instead, Gunn wants Clark Kent to feel real, small-town roots, awkwardness at work, and a genuine love for the people around him. Gunn has talked about why this matters. The new film isn't just about Superman's powers or his Kryptonian legacy, it's about how Clark Kent tries to do the right thing in a world that doesn't always value kindness. Gunn sees Superman as someone who stays hopeful even when things get tough. That's the core of the story. It's also a contrast to the darker, heavier versions of Superman we've seen before. The new film leans into Clark's relationships, his values, and his belief that people are worth saving. The early response has been strong. Preview screenings show a 95% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, higher than Donner's 1978 classic, and the best for any James Gunn film so far. The critic score sits at 82%. Relish Mix tracked a social reach of nearly 1 billion global users discussing the movie before its release, which is about 20% more than the average superhero film. The tone of the online conversation is different this time. This Superman feels right, and a comic book movie that's not ashamed to be a comic book is something we desperately needed. Others point out that the movie gives them the warm, fuzzy feelings they haven't had since the Christopher Reeve era. The buzz isn't just big, it's positive in a way DC hasn't seen in years. Lois Lane also gets a major upgrade in this version. Rachel Brosnahan takes on the role, and her casting is already getting attention. Gunn has made it clear that Lois isn't just a side character, she's Clark's anchor. Brosnahan reportedly studied real reporters to bring more authenticity to the role, focusing on how Lois navigates her job and her relationship with Clark. This helps ground the story and adds a layer of realism that was sometimes missing in previous films. The relationship between Clark and Lois is central, not just for romance, but for showing what keeps Superman connected to humanity. Visually and thematically, the contrast with the earlier films is obvious. The new Superman movie uses brighter colors, more open settings, and a tone that's less about the burden of power and more about the joy of being a hero. Clark Kent is allowed to smile, to care about people, and to be proud of what he stands for. The marketing leans into this too, with posters and trailers that highlight hope and connection instead of destruction and loss. For a lot of fans, this is the version of Superman they've been waiting for, one who feels relatable but also aspirational. Corenswet's Superman is already being seen as a turning point. He's not just another actor in the suit. He represents a return to what made the character matter in the first place. The focus on hope, kindness, and real relationships is resonating with audiences who had started to tune out. As the first chapter in Gunn's new DC universe, the expectations are high. But the early signs point to a Superman who can actually deliver on the promise of a fresh start. Whether this is enough to change the trajectory of the entire DCU, though, is still an open question. The groundwork is there, but the real test is what comes next. Getting people to care again is the first challenge. The last decade of DC movies promised big crossovers in a shared universe, but most of those plans fell apart. Gunn has said he's learned from both Marvel's wins and DC's stumbles. He talks about structure and vision a lot. That means not just throwing characters together, but making sure each story fits into the bigger picture. There's a risk here. If the new Superman doesn't land, the whole plan starts to wobble. But if it works, it could finally give DC the foundation it's been missing. Gunn's take on Superman is different from what we've seen before. Henry Cavill's version was all about isolation and heavy choices. David Corenswet's Superman is supposed to be the opposite, more open, more hopeful, and more connected to the world around him. Gunn says Superman leads with hope and kindness. He's not trying to convince people he belongs, he just acts because it's right. That's a big shift from the brooding, uncertain Superman of the past. The idea is to get back to what made the character popular in the first place. There's also talk about a World's Finest crossover, which would bring Superman and Batman together. This isn't just a rumor. Gunn is a huge fan of the concept, and the pairing of Reeves's Batman and Corenswet's Superman has a lot of fans excited.
I think what's been great is there was really a kind of a story that I wanted to tell. You know, we're calling the epic crime saga and all of that, which is the thrust of what we wanted to do, and it's been important to me to be able to play that out. And you know, James and Peter have been really, really great about that, and they're letting us do that. And you know, what the future brings, I can't really tell you. I have no idea right now, except that my head is down now about getting the Batman Part 2 shooting and to make it something really, really special, which of course is the most important thing.
It's a logical next step, especially since the chemistry between these characters could help define the tone of the new DCU. This new chapter for Superman isn't just about another superhero movie. It's a test of whether DC can finally deliver a universe that feels worth investing in. Superman is back at the center, and for the first time in years, there's a clear path forward. Whether that path leads to real change or just another missed opportunity depends on how well this new vision holds up once the spotlight is on. This new era for Superman is about more than swapping actors. It's a deliberate shift in tone and direction. Gunn's leadership is focused on restoring Superman's optimism, making him more relatable, and building a DC universe with a clear, unified vision. The goal is to move past the darkness and confusion of the old DCEU and offer fans a version of Superman who actually feels inspiring again.